President Biden is now interviewing candidates to succeed retiring Supreme Court Justice Stephen Breyer. Mr. Biden has vowed to nominate a black woman to the high court, and top contenders for the position include Judge Ketanji Brown Jackson, Justice Leandra Kruger, and Judge J. Michelle Childs. The president is expected to announce his choice by the end of the month, which, if you're keeping track, is early next week. Fatima Goss Graves is the president and CEO of the National Women's Law Center, and she joins me now to break down where we are right now. Fatima, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
So first off, we know the president is in the process of conducting these interviews with the top candidates. What do you know about where the process stands right now, and do you have a top pick at this point?
Well, the good news is that the president has a really deep bench of really stellar attorneys to choose from, whether it is Judge Ketanji Brown Jackson or Justice Leandra Kruger or some of the even longer list that we have seen. The president has highly qualified, exceptional choices. And so I don't feel like I have to be making the sorts of choices that he is making. And in fact, I think it's going to be a tough choice for him because he has such strong candidates to choose from.
I want to ask you about what each of these three top candidates would bring to the country as a Supreme Court justice. And we might as well start with Leandra Kruger, since she was a classmate of yours at Yale University and you know her well. So let's start there. What would she bring as a Supreme Court justice?
Well, Justice Leandra Kruger would first be the first person from a state Supreme Court in a long time. We haven't had that perspective on the bench since Justice O'Connor stepped down. And given how much of our law is developed in the states, having that perspective on the Supreme Court would be really interesting. I have to say that I was in the same class as Justice Kruger, and she stood out even then. And so we also know that Justice Kruger, like the other judges who are under consideration, would also just bring extraordinary qualifications and smarts to the role.
How about Ketanji Brown Jackson? She's often considered the front runner here. What would she bring to the court?
Well, one of the reasons I think that Judge Ketanji Brown Jackson is considered a front runner is that she was just recently confirmed to the D.C. Circuit within the last year. And that confirmation vote included a bipartisan vote where she got the votes of 3 Republican senators. You know, Judge Brown Jackson also just brings really vast legal experience to the circuit court. She was a public defender, and we have not had someone on the Supreme Court with a history of representing indigent criminal defendants really since Justice Marshall was on the court. And so that perspective would really be important and different. But she also has had experience at every level as a district court judge, as a circuit court judge. She clerked for Justice Breyer, who, as you know, is stepping down. So like Justice Kruger, she has experience clerking on the Supreme Court and has that broader perspective.
She also has something important in common with the president, which is that they were both public defenders at one point in their careers. Let's talk about Michelle Childs. She's the favorite of South Carolina Congressman James Clyburn. Has she won more widespread support in the progressive community?
Well, people are just, I think, learning about Judge Childs. She has been nominated to serve on a role on the D.C. Circuit as well, but her hearing didn't end up happening because they wanted it to not become sort of a shadow hearing for the Supreme Court, since her name had been circulating as potentially on the short list. She comes with a lot of private sector experience before becoming a judge, and has ruled on something like 1,500 cases in her time, both on the state and federal court bench. So her perspective would also be different from the perspectives of those who are currently on the Supreme Court. And I keep thinking about the fact that we have these 3 women whose backgrounds and careers really are so different. That actually is just a reminder of the really deep bench of talented Black women attorneys who have very different backgrounds and experiences. It's fun to see their names floating around.
Right, I can imagine. At the start of this process, though, there were a number of conservative lawmakers who slammed the president's decision to say outright that he wanted to name a Black woman to the court. That talk has died down somewhat, but do you expect it to pick back up again when a nominee is actually announced?
I was disappointed to see some critique from conservative circles around a justice who wasn't even named, especially because we know that there are so many people that the president could choose from that were highly qualified and had the right experience and met the test that he was looking for. And he was able to make history. That should be something that this country celebrates. And I think people will celebrate. I think people will feel really proud of us as a nation that we are in a place where we can name the first Black woman to serve on the Supreme Court. That said, if we do see that sort of foolishness come up after a nominee is named, I'm confident that organizations like mine at the National Women's Law Center, but really women around this country won't stand for it. And that may be why you've seen some of that talk die down.
So then describe the way organizations like yours are preparing to defend this nominee, whoever she is, during the confirmation process. We've been hearing that there's sort of this unprecedented network that is forming to support this nominee against any attacks that she may face, particularly during her confirmation hearings.
Well, we know that people are excited about the prospect of making history in this moment. And we want to be sure that race and sex stereotypes or ridiculousness don't get in the way. So I think people will be linking arms and calling for hearings that are fair and that are prompt and not delayed. And I actually think, if done right, it's just an opportunity for this country to celebrate our progress together. But the same folks, the men and women who are part of the National Women's Law Center, but are part of a range of networks that have been organizing for a long time, I think they will also be on deep watch, sort of standing at alert and attention for any sort of foolishness.
It would certainly be a milestone for the Supreme Court, which I believe has been 94% white men since its inception. So we're looking forward to the announcement. Fatima Goss Graves, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks for having me.